living. I am your host, Martinique Brown, and I'm so excited that you guys have decided to tune into the show today. If this is your very first time ever watching the show, make sure that you go ahead and share this video now, just so that more individuals can actually learn more about the topic that we are talking about today. Also, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Martinique the Storyteller, as well as follow me on Instagram, which is also Martinique the Storyteller. Now, I'm very excited about today's show, and I'm going to tell you for two reasons. So, one, I'm excited about today's show is because we are actually talking about how to be confident in a room full of other confident people. Now, the way that I actually came up with this topic is because sometimes, and I want to tell you, sometimes I get a little intimidated when I'm around other confident people. So I wanted to bring on Pavlik, which is a counselor, as well as Treyonda Towns, and she is a life coach, so they can actually help us gain that confidence that we need in social settings, as well as speaking in front of other confident people, and really just stand our ground, because we shouldn't feel smaller than anybody else. So that's the first reason why I'm excited about the show. The second reason why I'm excited about the show is because, drum roll please, we actually have a counselor from Dayton, Ohio. That's where I'm from, y'all. Did y'all know that? So that is actually where Matt's office is. And I'm just so excited because that's where I'm from. So let me ask you guys this. If you can go ahead and tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself, as well as your area of specialty as a counselor and a life coach. And we'll go ahead and start with you, Matt.
Okay, thanks. I am a counselor, as you said, a Christian counselor, and I am in Dayton, Ohio, like you said. I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, though, which I think is close to where Treyonda is from, so that's good. I am in private practice. I work with individuals and couples in like dealing with trauma and also communication and conflict in their marriage. And I've self-published a few books on identity. Christian identity called Confident Identity and To Identity Beyond, and a marriage book, Marriage from Roots to Fruits.
That's good. So what about you, Treyonda?
Well, hello. Once again, my name is Treyonda Towns. I am a certified life transformational coach that specializes in trauma and crisis. And there is also an influence, or I would say an emphasis on spirituality, if that client is willing and open to it. I am a degreed psychology counselor, waiting to sit for my board for my LPC. But this kind of gives me the freedom on the behalf of more practicing as a life coach, because I'm more open to allowing that client to pretty much just walk with them in a more independent format versus therapeutically, where they are more opted to become more dependent on me and may, hesitate to kind of take those steps.
So what are some of the steps that you think that people can actually take to build their confidence in the things that they say, as well as when they're in social settings?
Matt, you want to?
That's what people always do when they be like, well, let me think about this.
Well,
let's break it down.
I still go back to whether somebody would be thinking in terms of trying to be like somebody else or be yourself. And only God, who's our creator, can really tell us who we are. And until we know him and know ourselves, we're not going to be speaking too much from our center. Then we're going to be trying to emulate or be like somebody else. And that's usually not going to turn out too well. There can be times to be humble and defer to somebody else if they really do seem like they have something else to add. There's nothing wrong with that. That could be a sign of confidence too.
So many times, individuals who are outspoken and strong-minded seems to have the most confidence. Do you believe this to be true?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because on the outside that would appear, somebody could appear to be confident, but the outside doesn't really, how they present themselves doesn't necessarily mean that they're confident on the inside. They could be a good actor, or they could have things memorized, or they could be acting. But I think God works with us and changes us from the inside out. We know God is there with us. He's our creator. He made us. He's the one that's he's the author of us. He's the one that's going to be our confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So in the short run, just being confident on the outside doesn't really mean too much. And you might not even start there. You might start off not very confident at all. And that's okay. You start where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, though, if you recognize, and the more you know yourself, and you feel God's love for you and him telling you the truth of who you are, then eventually that will propagate out and it will become confident.
Mm-hmm.
But the confidence is only because we're backed up by God, or we know God is there with us. It's not like we're standing alone and being confident.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you think, Treyonda?
I guess, well, that kind of once again can go where the scale is kind of imbalanced, where it can find that balance there, because you can be on one end where you lacking confidence in seeing who you are, and being comfortable with what you've learned and what you know. And you can have that overconfidence, which pushes you into an area of just being proudful and arrogant and kind of disrespectful for others in the room, where you're always right. And so it could bring that sense of not so good. But when you have both ends come to the middle, I think that's where the healthy balance of having self-confidence and a good mindset that will kind of portray within your character, and it will show within your character and who you are and how you talk and how you treat others and how you project whatever you're working on at that time.
Another question is, if someone does not have these characteristics, meaning being outspoken and strong-minded, do you feel that it's necessary for them to develop these traits within themselves?
I mean, I think in life, as we are growing and we're evolving as just beings in itself, all those things are traits that need to be built. When we talk about skill sets, so you have your soft skill sets and you have your hard skill sets. And of course, confidence is one of them, because it kind of portrays how you project in your character, in your communication, and how you are dealing with others, your leadership style, how you're able to follow or lead, in that kind of brings about an opportunity to build relationships that could nurture a healthy self-esteem or greater self-esteem in a manner. As I was preparing for this today, it was kind of interesting because I ran across something where it kind of broke it down, where they were saying there's two levels. You have that level of self-confidence, or what they call self-efficacy, which is the way we see ourselves among other people, which is how we master those skills and to achieve the goals that we're intending to do. So if we're in a room and there's everyone is challenged to present something or to bring forth something, you practice that. You practice, you prepare, you research, and you bring it all together which brings about that self-efficacy, which can nurture and help your self-esteem. But then it was also saying it kind of overlaps, because now that you bring that to the table, you feel better about yourself. That brings your confidence up. It builds your self-esteem. It nurtures. So now it's like, well, I'm prepared. But then someone opens their mouth and they bring something to the table that you never heard of before, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not. And you draw back and you question who you are.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that solid foundation within you, as Matt was saying, of having an understanding or being accepting of yourself, of knowing that you were created, as a great being, and that you have something to bring to the table, no matter how great or how small, your foundation will be shaken just by someone else bringing their gift to the table, which is okay that their gift is a little bit different from your gift. But that doesn't mean that your gift isn't worthy of anything.
That's good. That's good. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I'm not a very outspoken person, although maybe I'm learning to be a little more like that. I would say you don't have to be outspoken to be confident.
Right.
It's more the message that you have that matters. If you know God or you know the truth, then speaking that out is what makes a difference. I was joking with somebody the other day, and he called me Moses. Like, I don't really want to be the guy that gets up in front of everybody and leads everybody, but maybe that's what God's calling me to do. So I guess, so outspoken to me, I don't know, I guess that could be assertive. That could be a positive interpretation, but it also sounds like it could be negative, like speaking all the time or speaking out of turn or something like that too. So I guess it depends on what's really going on. But I would say the message that a person had is more important than exactly how they present it.
That's good. And the reason why I was thinking about that is because I think outwardly, when we do hear these, and I don't want to make it seem like they're always loud, but always the first to speak up or, to express how they feel about something, you automatically just think, oh man, they must have a lot of confidence, within themselves. And I remember this young man that was my classmate in high school. And one of the things about him is he was never the one that you will always hear, meaning that he wasn't always the first one he wasn't the one that was always in front of the crowd and stuff like that. But it was kind of like whenever he did talk, then you listen, because you know that he just wasn't saying stuff just to be saying things. And I just thought that was just a great characteristic about him, that he speaks when he feels like he has something important to say, and when he doesn't say anything. Now, me on the other hand, I have a problem with that. I'm just always like, Martinique, can you just not talk for a minute?
There's room for both, definitely.
Yeah,
it's not really bad or that, but there's room for both. We need everything. We need everybody.
Yeah, that's true. How could you, as a life coach or counselor, really help someone be confident when they're alongside other confident people?
I could tell a little bit about just a little snapshot of my own journey. Maybe that might be an idea. I was thinking when I was thinking of the topic that you had prepared, and I actually wrote a blog post over the weekend about this, that there's a few steps that you could take. I grew up and I'm pretty much an introvert, and I have some limited relationships. I like closer friends, but not a wide variety of them. So I spent a lot of time journaling and reading and those kind of things. And at first that was about my main capacity was doing that. And then second, I would say I reached out to one person at a time, like maybe one of my parents or a mentor or somebody else that I could connect with. And that was about my speed. And then finally, I am reaching out to more people at the same time, being involved in more groups and interacting more. And that has been a growth process for me over the years and decades that I've been alive.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be something I would recommend to somebody else, especially if they're starting out more introverted, and or even if they have some shyness or anxiety or not sure how to interact socially, that it's okay to start small that way and build on your strengths, and then eventually get to where you have a strength or an ability to socialize more.
Mm-hmm. So what are you saying, man? Are you more so saying that if you was in a group setting, you would really just try to challenge yourself and say, okay, Matt, go and talk to at least one person? Is that how you would do things, or how would you do it?
Hmm. Well, I'm saying that it's been a process of building over the years. And if I
Mm-hmm.
would have been, say, 20 years old and put a certain amount of pressure on myself to interact with people, it would come out a lot differently now that I'm in my 40s and have had experience socializing more and doing that more. So I wouldn't have been as good at it. I would have thought I don't have so much to offer, so I'm going to hide more or not interact as much. I might have waited mostly for somebody to come up and talk to me, but now I probably would have more the strategy of I'm going to try to mix a little bit and find out who I can connect with or how I can help them,
Mm-hmm.
how I can be a blessing to them, because as I've grown over the years, I feel more confident that I have something to offer someone, and that also comes from knowing God and learning from Him, or being a Christian for so many years too.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel more excited about that, to do that now, whereas years ago I would not feel that confidence inside to as much to know that I have something to share, but I feel more sure of that now.
That's good.
Mm.
That's good. What do you think, Treyonda?
Well, all of this, as far as what people see of me now, has been a process. If you had met me maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago, and I still do a lot now, I'm always the one that's in the back of the room and just hoping that no one noticed me or calls me out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for whatever reason, I guess life builds that momentum in you. And just having a heart, I guess having a heart in that heart of compassion for people. And I guess it began to nurture, be grown by being an advocate in many areas for individuals that didn't have a voice. Now, rile me up, do something, or see an injustice, I had a voice then, but just having a conversation like this, anxiety would just consume me. And there was, and people say, could you speak up? Could you speak up? Because it's, for me, it sounded like I was loud, but to everyone else, it was a whisper. And a lot of that had to do with my self-confidence. Are people hearing me? And some of that also had to do with upbringing, right? I grew up in a home. My stepdad was a police sergeant. And so, you know, there's just some old school teachings where children were seen and not heard. So
Mm-hmm.
you wasn't allowed to have a voice much. And so as you grew up as an adult, that's something that you had to learn to be nurtured and allowed to be nurtured. Um, like Matt said, just going through that process, being healed and knowing who you are, and understanding what all of that is about, and just my faith in that in itself. I've shared my story many times, and that in itself has created such a intense voice within me, because when you feel like you're violated at times, it creates, you know, God will get it out of you. Just put it that way. When there's a word that He has for you to share, um, He will get it out of you. And it doesn't always have to be boastful. It doesn't always have to be harsh. It doesn't always have to be aggressive. Um, but it can be soothing, and it can be encouraging, and it can be life changing, just that one word. And so just the process of having those opportunities or different ones, just putting me out there. Even in this, this is just so, I mean, I would have never done this prior, but just having this platform and someone say, hey, you have something to say, share. Someone may, be encouraged by what you have to say. It's an encouragement for me. It's healing for me, because I too still work on that process after going through my own life journey. It's creating in me that stronger confidence of who God says that I am. And so it's a work. It's a process. It's a process.
Definitely. And I would like you two to really just talk to viewers about that confidence that you do begin to have when you do have that personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Because I think that sometimes maybe, and if you are an unbeliever that's watching this, you let me know. Just say, Martinique, you are so wrong. So if you are an unbeliever, then you really don't think the two will go hand in hand in knowing who your creator is and having confidence in who you are. How does that even go hand in hand?
That's interesting. It's hard for me to imagine it being the other way, that you could have confidence if you don't know God. I became a Christian when I was 20. So prior to that, I didn't know God, and I was more shy, more not so confident. And knowing that I have somebody that I know loves me, that cares about me, that created me with intention, that I'm not here by accident, that gives me a lot of confidence. And having, I could tell the difference, having become a believer later in life, as opposed to being a child, I could tell the difference between what it felt like to not have God with me and to have God with me. And that was a big enough confidence booster in itself. I finally had a framework for life that explained a lot of things, even if there's still disappointments or frustrations or hurts in life, at least it's all explainable. And in the midst of it all, God still cares about me. And it's not a religion, like, it's real for me. So I don't think of God as like a crutch, if that's what you were thinking of when you said that.
Well, I was more so talking about, because you know how some people, and I think that was a really good response, but I'm also thinking about those individuals that say, it's all about me. I know that I can do this because I'm educated, or, I have street smarts, so I can do this. So it's more so that burden of their confidence is all within them. It's not because of any higher being or anything like that. So I was just wondering, if an unbeliever is like, what in the world does God and confidence have to do with each other?
Okay, I think I see more what you're meaning now, whether I would be relying on myself more and my abilities. And there's times when I'm in that situation, I would say, when I have learned something and I feel like I've got it pretty well, but there's always some new challenge, or there's something going on. I think God always calls us to grow, or to think beyond just ourselves too. So it's the partnership with God that allows us to accomplish more. Maybe in my own strength and my own power, I could accomplish something because of what He's created in me. But I'm eventually going to run out of steam or strength if it's all me, though, and I won't be able to accomplish as much or grow as much. So to me, it makes a difference in that way.
That's good. And I was also thinking about, when you do recognize a confidence, you become appreciative when you do know Jesus Christ, as your Lord and Savior, because you like, thank you, Jesus, because I was so fearful of such and such. Or it just, even when you don't, not fearful in a situation, because you do have that relationship with Him, you know where it's coming from. You know that where that source of power is coming from. But what do you think, Treyonda?
Well, 2 Timothy 1:7 says that he does not give us the power of, the spirit of fear, but of a power of love and a sound mind. And that has been encouraging to me, because once again, a lot of my lack of confidence came out of fear, right? Fear of getting it wrong, fear of what people will say, fear of people rejecting me. And so going through the process of healing and knowing that, he does not give me that spirit of fear, that greater is in he that's in me than he that's in the world, which at times will encourage me in that area. But also you have Richard Klink that says confidence is preparation, right?
Good.
So it goes both ways. Everything else beyond your control, if you're not prepared, that too could affect your confidence. And so it's not so much of not having that connection. I want them to be drawn into and knowing that God loves you and he's open and he's available to you. But I don't want anyone to feel that they've been forgotten, right? And so in that, just allowing yourself to be walked into, there's an echo, allowing yourself to be walked, allowing yourself to learn tools that would give you what you need to work in that area where you feel weak, where you feel that you're not enough. And I guess that goes back to that need to be validated, right? So you talk about what some of the things that you could use, and it goes back to just preparing for that journey in itself. What is the journey? What is the goal? What are you looking to accomplish at that time, right? To set out in that journey and then just going for it. What Nike say, just do it, right? Let's just do it. And being okay with that.
Yeah.
Being okay with that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I have found with my relationship with Christ and like with confidence, because I'm not 100% there, I do have my moments of being fearful and not being confident when I'm in front of people and things like that. But I think I think that it really just helps me to know that Jesus is walking alongside with me. Yes. And it'll be okay. Like Martinique, if you mess up, it'll be okay. If you don't say Matt Pavlik's last name correctly, it's okay. Just like taking that pressure off of yourself and knowing that life will go on, and recognizing and remembering you are human. And everybody that seems like they're so confident, they have to grow to that, so it's definitely a process. But I want to bring that up, that there is a connection between God and confidence. When you know who your creator is, when you know who he has created you to be, you can begin to walk in your gifts more appropriately. And so that's a good transition for me to let you know that Matt and Treyonda's contact information is in the description box. If Treyonda, our life coach, or Matt, our counselor, has really connected with you and you said, you know what, I want to take this conversation a little bit further, make sure that you go ahead and reach out to them. So do you think that comparing oneself to others
I don't want to interrupt you, but I had a comment based on something with the last question and something Trump said.
Go ahead.
Something.
See, that's confidence, y'all. He said, we are not done.
That's it.
Well, it might be just something simple, but I was thinking, like I get questions a lot when I'm counseling people. Well, what's God's will, or how much am I supposed to try and how much is God supposed to be trying? Do I just wait for God, or do I take a step of faith, or I need to let God do his part. And so people get confused about that a lot. And I guess I've come to the conclusion that I have to do everything I can and do my very best, and that's going to be only so good. But with God, I got to trust that He's going to do His best, and He has a plan, or He has something good in mind. I have to think positively about what He has in mind and trust Him, even if it doesn't seem like it's turning out well, but not giving up at that point. I actually just watched a clip of that movie Facing the Giants recently too, and there's a scene where he asked the football player to keep giving his very best, and that really touched me when I watched that I need to do that, to not hold back anything from God, to give all that I have. And so that even though I can be terrified or afraid or anxious, I know that there's nothing wrong with giving my very best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's I think that's one of the things that we need to realize, that because God knows our heart, He knows when you're giving your best, or not in that. And I just think that and not to say that God is like, oh, Martinique, I know you didn't give your best, but God is very patient with us. That's a characteristic of His. So He's very patient with us, and He motivates us because He's like, I know you can do it. I gave you something called the Holy Spirit within you, so do not fret, my child. And let me ask you guys this: so, do you think comparing oneself to others, along with becoming envious of others, plays a role in a person's confidence? Why or why not? What do y'all think?
I believe it plays a big role when you're focused on the other person, or you begin to compare yourself. So it goes back to revisiting our previous conversation when we talk about mindset and talk about the self-talk, the negative self-talk, right? Filling in the gaps with positive things, whether it was scripture, a quote, something that gives you comfort and gives you strength, because God gives us all wisdom in different forms that prepares us and equips us, right? And so equipping yourself with that knowledge so that you have something to repel that negative self-talk, and can keep you focused on you, what you need to feel strengthened, what builds you up every day. Being open to accepting tools that will help you strengthen yourself, strengthen who you are, help you bring your mind back. Because hearing someone say you say your one negative thing come into your mind, you say 3 or 4 things after it to kind of repel until it becomes an instant where those negative things don't have a way to penetrate and become solid within you, and you're believing that, right? And so building those things, and just working with that, working with that.
Definitely.
When I think of comparison, I like to talk about it in terms of a good comparison and a bad comparison. If you're comparing yourself to others and you're trying to measure yourself or consider yourself as superior or inferior, and you're gauging yourself that way, then that's usually more destructive or harmful to set yourself in comparing yourself that way. But there's a good way to compare, and that's to see how you are different, but appreciate the differences in the other person and yourself. So then there's room for both of you, and you can feel good about yourself, but you can also feel good about who the other person is. And that's a much better way to compare. So it's useful to compare because then you know how you're different. So it's okay to compare, but not compare in a way that is going to put somebody down.
Put somebody down. That's right. That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
I don't know. That's the first time that I ever heard like the comparison as a good thing, because it's typically switched to, being envious or coveting, what somebody else has or what they can do, their skill sets and things like that. And so, I don't know. I think that is really an area that maybe I think people can really just try to grow in. Not the comparison in, oh, I wish I had, or I wish I could also do such and such, but like, okay, well, we are different in these areas, and we can complement each other, in these areas.
Yeah, that's what makes a good team that way.
Yeah, for some reason, I'm just thinking about relationships.
Yeah.
With that, how, everybody has their strengths, and, the other individual may not be as strong in the area, but they're, especially with marriages, you're a team. And so you really just make that dream work. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
But that's why what I do a lot of restorative justice work, and I find that's really a good method, especially when it comes to young people that age set, like 11 maybe to 24, in between that box. Kind of that's where a heart and passion lies, because they're still open to receiving. But within that realm of the restorative justice practice, there is no hierarchy, right? We talk about everything being in that circle where everyone is equal, everyone brings that voice, everyone has an opportunity to share, everyone sets values for how everyone desires and what they desire that space to look like, where everyone is within it and bringing what they have. But the biggest thing is being accountable, right? Being accountable for self, right? And so if you're mindful of being accountable for yourself, whether it's causing harm, repairing harm, bringing gifts, all of those things, your focus on someone else is not so intentional. But your focus is more on self and bringing your gifts to the table that will encourage and nurture. And like you say, and like you both say, complement what the other person have. And that sets the stage for having good peace. But once again, it could bring chaos as well. But all chaos is not bad chaos. Like Matt was saying, all comparisons is not a bad comparison, even though society has programmed it and made it, the all naughty thing, and made it a thing that's bad. It also brings good out of people as well, because it buffers us.
Yeah.
Right, at times. So it kind of brings that push and pull. I always call it the push and pull effect. I'm going, you push me, I'm pulling you. I'm pulling you, you push me, and let's do this journey together. No, I always tell my family, my children, no soldier left behind. Let's go. Everybody up. Everybody has a portion. I'm not the parent right now. We're a team. You do this, you get that, and we're going to make this work. Right. And just being mindful, once again, what you have to bring. And so you're not distracted about what someone else has. Or is
Yeah, and I think I think that's really good in the fact that for some reason, like I said, I just never thought of it like that. And I think that can be a tool that we can use to more so be proactive. When we do feel ourselves beginning to compare ourselves in a negative way to somebody, focus more so on how it's not so much a lack of what you have, but how could it be a compliment to you? Or if it's something that you see within this individual, and not become jealous or envious, but maybe humble yourself and talk to that person and say, man, how in the world did you learn how to speak so well, in front of people? So I do think that there's a humbleness to it, and also a self-awareness and knowing yourself, and like, oh, why am I starting to feel anxious about this, or when I'm around these type of people. So I think that that could really just be helpful in just growing as individuals. Um, so, what are some of the things that parents can actually do to help their kids become more confident in themselves, but still maintain that humility?
Parents are like God to their children. They're not God, but they are
Mm-hmm.
like that until children really know God themselves. So anything that a parent can do to see the child's gifts and to encourage it and to draw it out and be their cheerleader, be the person that's there, showing them like a mirror of who they are as best as we can, as we're like stewards of God's resource, or God has given us, loaned us children for a while. And the best thing that I can see is to be part of that process of showing children who they are.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Treyonda?
Um, just feeding off of and adding, what Matt has brought forth is just allowing that space for young people and for children to have a voice, to learn to be respectful for that voice. Um, Once again, I was grown up where I wasn't allowed that. And so when I became a parent, I was intentional in allowing space for my children to be able to have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
But nurturing them nurturing them so that they're mindful in how they bring forth that voice, in how they share how they feel and how they share their opinion, that it's not disrespectful, it's not out of context, but it's out of it's a healthy way of communicating,
Mm-hmm.
um, using tools, encouraging them to think about um, their actions and how it's affecting others. Um, I make them think about, and I ask them, is there any other way that you could have done that? Right? Do you understand that cause harm? And allowing space for communication, something that's going to take them throughout life. And um, I have one that constantly battles, of course, children can be really mean amongst each other. And so um, when they come home from school broken because they've been bullied or someone, their peer said something that wasn't nice, reminding them, that you are beautiful, you are unique. And, yes, that was mean, but, you can't change how someone treats you or what someone says to you, but you can control how you deal with it. So right now, how can we deal with how you're feeling? How can we work with how that has affected you? And sometimes it works, and sometimes, I see it working now that they're older, um, because I have one that struggled a lot with body image,
Mm-hmm.
and just those little pet names that children can give each other sometimes could be the worst,
Mm-hmm.
and just encouraging and, um, write it down, put a journal. What do you see good about yourself versus what they said about you?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even with them. It helps me too, because even on my bad day,
Mm-hmm.
just that compliment, just that word out of the blue, just that hug out of the blue, asking them, what is your opinion about this? Um, does it always work? No. Will it work for every child? Of course not, because every child is different. But it has always been important to me that every young person have that space to know and to grow and to be able to voice who, what, and how they feel and think, so that as they grow up as adults, that they're there's just some choices that I made that probably could have been avoided if I had that space to
Mm-hmm.
be honest with how I felt and to be able to share that. and to be able to express those things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean as a parent?
Even as a parent, once I became a parent, right? And of course, everyone says, there's no book for parenting, but yes, it is. I know someone that wrote a book on parenting, and he is a male. He's a dad. He wrote a book on parenting. I will share that information, Mr. Kingston. But just growing up, just a child, and once again, that harbored that fear within me. Right? Because you're always afraid that you're going to cross that border, that boundary, of saying something wrong or expressing something wrong. And it could just be something and saying, well, no, thank you. There was times that I was in arenas where it was just pressed upon me that it was wrong to say, no, thank you. I'm not hungry right now, or no, thank you. I've already had a snack, and that was in the religious arena, where things were so stringent. And, it's just a lot of programming that, that can affect your self-esteem, that we as parents, just, being mindful for what your household needs.
I actually know, Treyonda, that you mentioned that parents can begin to equip themselves with tools. And sometimes I think about, because I ask this a question a lot when it deals with how adults are now and what parents can begin to do to implement this within their kids. And so then I think about those parents that don't have this, which is for today's topic, confidence. So how could they exude that to kids if maybe they didn't grow up hearing anybody helping them to be confident, And so I just wonder how parents that don't have something that we're talking about, how could they teach something or instill something within their kids,
Self-working on it, right? Start with themselves first.
Yeah.
Those tools that's set up for children, start with it first. Take the little steps, little by little, break it down, keep it basic, and begin to build yourself. And as, it could become a household, as we say, game, but yet, they think it's a game, but, just finding it in an easy way to bring it into the room with the family, and practice it. A lot of it's practice. When you first become a parent, we don't know anything. We're practicing on our children. So, let's not get perfect now when it's most important, because the youth today is dealing with so much that unimaginable. Things that just never was imagined that they would deal with years prior.
Parents anybody can learn something. They can read it in a book and instruct somebody, but it's more head knowledge then. If it's not so much hard and learn knowledge through sweat and tears yourself. So if a parent didn't have something given to them, then they can pass things on. But the best way to pass things on is going to be going through the sweat and tears yourself to learn the stuff, and then you pass on something even more than just the head knowledge. But you can pass other things on too, even if you haven't had the experience.
And one thing that I was thinking about was, because I don't have any kids, for people that's watching. So I don't have any kids, but I have nieces and nephews. And sometimes, like when I want to say something that's complimentary to my nieces or nephews, to myself, I think, oh, that's stupid. Don't say that. And sometimes I have to challenge myself to say it because I know it's going to boost their confidence, that it's going to help them. And so what do y'all think before I tell viewers what to do? What do y'all think?
I was just curious why you would think that was stupid. I don't know.
Well, I guess because sometimes I think about like, I think that it sounds stupid, or they might not receive it like, oh, she's so corny, because I'm older.
But children do. I just
Uh,
had just had a scenario with that, right? Um, I have, little 4-year old, and every day, because once again, I notice he draws back in crowds, and he kind of gets really, and it takes him, and so I tell him, I compliment him all the time, and I let him, you're the greatest. He's the greatest thing for me. You're the best. He was outside playing today, and there was this yellow bug, and it crawled to the chair next to his mama, and he stepped on it, and he told me, he said, I stepped on it, and buddy, you're the greatest. And he would, and
Aw.
I said, you know what, you saved your mama. And he's like, I didn't. He went, now they told me I'm the greatest because I saved you, mommy. I rescued you. Right. But it's those little things,
Uh-huh.
right? But society would tell you that's weird. Something wrong with you. Why are you talking
Uh-huh.
to a kid like that?
Uh-huh.
But that he went in there and he's like, Nana said I'm the greatest because she's so proud of me because I saved you, mommy. And and that mean a lot. I probably would never know the exact magnitude, that has on him. But to have someone 4 years old to take
Yeah.
that back and to express that with that emotion, and to share it with his mom or with someone else, or he love his mom, or say, oh mom, you're the greatest, I love you. That's from daily just saying that,
Mhm.
just saying that to him, because once again, my fear, and I'm sure with many parents, but I'm gonna speak about me, is that I have, a male child now in my household that I fear is going to grow up and is going to have to deal with some harsh challenges that's out there.
Mhm.
And if I don't start with him right now, he won't be able to deal with what he's yet to face,
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's my
That's good.
my personal.
That's good.
As we're all talking here, it occurs to me that one thing we haven't gotten to tonight is that there is always something working against all of us too. We have an enemy, or we just have other people. I can be in a bad mood, other people can be in a bad mood,
Yeah.
and they may not be encouraging at that moment. So that makes it 10 times harder to be confident in those moments when we've got all these things working against us too.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely. Definitely. The devil is real, and he works through people as well. And
Mhm.
so that's why it's so important to really um, just have that time with God. And when I say that, along with prayer, but also just reading your Bible so you can have a better understanding of um, who Jesus is, as well as who he created you to be, as well as knowing the word of God in order to combat
Mhm.
what Satan will try to tell you that you are, as well as you'll be able to recognize like just that discernment within people like this person is not for me today. Let me go ahead and just make my way to the desk, because I know that they're trying to prick at me and trying to really just um, mess with my confidence or even just my happiness for today. So, are there any books or resources or habits that you really believe that people can begin to practice that will help them to build their confidence? Starting with you, Matt, what you think?
Well, I guess I'm a little biased. I've spent a few years of my life writing a few different books. I would recommend the To Identity and Beyond. I have a part of that book that outlines 5 stages of identity maturity,
Mm-hmm.
that we start with being caregiver focused, and then we can become creation focused, and then at some point we become crisis focused when life gets difficult and we need to grow. But then we can become Christ focused and then calling focused.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another book, a workbook, Confident Identity, that helps people work out that and understand their unique identity, who they are in Christ in a general sense that the identity that we share as believers, and in a specific sense of who God made them uniquely.
That's good. That's good. His website is actually in the description box, and that's where you can actually purchase his books. Treyonda, you can go ahead and let me know what books or resources or habits do you think that people can actually begin to practice that would really just help them to build up their confidence.
Well, basic things is, once again, journaling, daily affirmations, scriptures, quotes, because of course we know the Bible, once again, it's a tool in itself for all our needs. But there's another book, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, I found was really awesome, by Nathaniel Brandon. And he talks about living consciously, being intentional, being assertive, being responsible, which I talk about, being accountable, living life purposefully, and also personal integrity, which is a big thing, to carry you through that. But also just practicing just daily self-awareness, right? Being aware of yourself, of your weaknesses, and charting that down of how you and where you would like to grow. But we're not going to forget about also my my book when you're dealing with those, because in the manner, it was written as a tool to bring self-awareness to when you're dealing with crisis trauma, and most definitely when you're dealing with death, which is something that we all are going to have to experience, but we rarely want to talk about. And so how do you deal with that, right? What does that make you feel like? How can you acknowledge that? What can you use to bring you comfort at that time, to bring you healing at that time, to strengthen you at that time when you don't hear the voice or you're on the edge of losing faith? And also my other book, The 21-Day Success Plan Journal, right? Once again, talking about accountability, talking about the other tools that will keep someone successful, not just in business and growing business, but in life. Life in itself is a business at times, right? And so those are just some of the tools that, and resources that you could use. Once again, and then there's basic things, walking, being mindful of your diet, having someone, to share those things with, to get feedback, to work a plan with you. I think we talked about that before, because we can always be doing something, but are we doing something that's going to come out positive? Is that part of the solution?
Definitely. Yeah. And if you would like to purchase Treyonda's books as well, just make sure that you visit her Facebook page and send her a message. She actually responds to her messages, y'all. But I'm really glad that we was able to talk about this topic, because I know that, with the whole comparison and, the self-talk and things like that, we are able to lose self-confidence so much faster than building that facade of having that confidence in front of people. But deep down, when you look at yourself in the mirror, like, I have no confidence at all. I'm just,
especially when people are mean to you, especially when you do, like you said, people are having their day and they're projecting it on you.
Definitely.
How do you still stand in doing what you do and who you say you are when you have that coming at you? Because once again, we're human too. We have emotions, we have feelings, we have those moments too where we just need a timeout. And so how do you deal with that challenge?
So everyone, make sure that you go ahead and visit our Facebook page as well as our Instagram pages, but make sure that you go ahead and just connect with us. Make sure you like and as well as share this video so that other individuals can just have a better understanding of where this confidence come from, as well as having those resources and tools in your toolbox so you can learn how to build that foundation just to become more self-aware as well as have more confidence within yourself. I just thank you again, Matt and Treyonda, for being on the show, and I hope you guys have a great night.
Nice to meet you, Matt. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.